Quiet streets, golden domes glinting in the distance, and that soft, slow rhythm that Russian city seems to have.
It feels like I'm in a Russian old-school fairy tales.
This is Kostroma, a small, very Russian city with a long history and that kind of quiet that makes you notice the details. In the beginning of September, we, a small group of work friends and their partners, decided to escape the Moscow for a weekend, just to reset, eat some good food and walk someplace new. The choice fell on Kostroma, mostly because none of us had ever been there and it was far enough to feel like a trip, but close enough to still call it a spontaneous weekend runaway. We took a late evening train, it's about 4 hours from Moscow, and by the time we arrived, it was already dark. We rented a wooden house right in the center, which is not something you usually find, even in small towns like this one. Around it, low houses, a few of them wooden too, and mainly listed as cultural heritage. Can you believe that? Inside though, it felt more like a regular summer cottage or something. Cozy but plasticky simple. We had some tea, sat for a while, and decided to call it a night because it was after a day of work and we couldn't wait to start exploring the city in the morning. The next morning we started slowly and then took a walk towards the city center. In general, we were lucky with the weather. It's only dieseled a couple of times during the whole trip, and almost each time it stopped before we even thought of opening an umbrella. This morning wasn't an exception. We stopped at random cafe for proper breakfast, or honestly more like a brunch because it was already closer to noon. And then we finally went out to explore. From the fire tower, we passed a small flea market, crossed Susanin Square, and headed down towards the river, the Kostroma River, which, fun fact, gave the city its name. Along the way, we stumbled upon a series of tiny monuments: a dog, a cat, a dove, the so-called memorable nail, and even a few little metal sculptures of hares. And those Mazai hares, they are the part of this quirky little tradition, like the trolls in Kaliningrad, playful little figures scattered around the city, each with a story of its own. They were inspired by a 19th century story by Uncle Mazai, a kind old man who rescued hares from the flood. So now these little metal figures have become a symbol of kindness and local humor. I'm not really into alcohol these days, but my friends were, so we stopped by a bar called the Faculty of Tasters. A brilliant name, honestly. The drinks were strong and, let's just say, not exactly delicious, according to my friend's review, but the atmosphere, all vintage furniture, old lamps, chalkboards and test tubes felt more like a quality-themed escape room than an actual bar. I kinda love that vibe. A bit warmer and a bit happier, we headed to the trade rows, the heart of old Kostroma. Some of the covered arcades are now just regular shops, like souvenir and cheese stalls. But inside, there is still a real market. And maybe it won't make so much sense if you didn't grow up in post-Soviet space, but it instantly gave me that childhood shopping flashbacks. Back then, there were no shopping malls, no endless choice, and of course, no online stores. Just some open-air markets, where you would try and choose standing on a piece of cardboard, on a bare ground, whatever season it was, while your mom bargained with the seller for a discount. Honestly, this kind of nostalgia I don't really miss, but I'm planning to make a separate video about my northern hometown Murmansk. It's also a small city of Russia, but it's above the Arctic Circle. That one will be full of real nostalgia. the kind of that actually feels warm. So if you're into that kind of quiet and slightly melancholic aesthetic, stay tuned. Anyways, from the trade rows we wandered through the Central Park and of course past the monument to Lenin. You will find one in pretty much every Russian city existed. And just a few minutes later we reached the Bogoyavlensky cathedral, an old Orthodox church known for its beautiful frescoes and connection to the early Romanov dynasty. Most of us in this trip aren't particularly religious, so we didn't stay long and just admired the architecture and keep going. Another fun fact, Kostroma is also known as the birthplace of Snegurochka, the snow maiden from Russian folklore, the granddaughter and the helper of Ded Moroz, who is our version of Santa Claus. There is even a whole museum dedicated to her, though it mostly for kids, so we just walked by. The streets led us towards the river again, with small local museums along the way and trees already turning golden and red. Even under the cloudy sky, it looks cozy and peaceful and that unmistakable early autumn vibe. We had a plan to visit the cheese museum because, first and foremost, it just sounded ridiculously fun. But apparently for a group of 8 hours, you're supposed to book it in advance. So we had to postpone it till the next day. Still, the gift shop more than made up for it. Cheese-flavored ice cream, cheese-shaped cookies, coasters, souvenirs. The locals really went all in on the theme. Though taste-wise, let's just say it was more fun than delicious. After this cheese aperitivo, we were starving, so we went to a restaurant called Syrvarnya, which literally means cheese factory. Everything was generally good. It was a mid-range place, as we say in Russia, by Moscow prices, which means around 700 rubles per dish, roughly $8 by today's exchange rate. They even had a special cocktail menu themed after Mazai hairs. Pretty much everyone liked almost everything. Personally, I also always pay attention to the bathrooms in cafes and restaurants. It tells a lot about the place, and this one did not disappoint. Just look at this fountain of faucets, like in Harry Potter's Chamber of Secrets, and the stone sinks inside the stalls. That alone deserves a few extra points. We left the restaurant just in time for the golden hour and decided to walk back home. The light was so soft and the air still warm, and the city looked almost cinematic, quiet streets and windows glowing, and that perfect let's not hurry mood. Even a few ruined buildings we passed didn't look abandoned, more like romantic traces of a history just still holding on. On the way we also stopped by a shop to get everything we needed for a small evening barbecue, because the house we rented had a grill in the yard, so it felt like the right plan to end the day. The evening turned into a mix of long talks and surprisingly complicated attempts to start a fire. For some mysterious reason, it took us hours, even with a lighter liquid and a full bag of charcoal. But it was fun anyways. You know, one of those random team building things that you never plan, but somehow it's end up as an inside joke later. When the fire finally caught, we were all starving again. The guys grilled some fish and I went for peppers and other veggies. Simple but still perfect after such a long day. To wrap up the evening, one of my colleagues' wives hosted a mini candle painting workshop. She's starting out in event planning and focusing on workshops, so use this as a little practice group. And we loved it. The whole vibe was so cozy and oddly calming after all that chaos with the grill and such. And look at this autumn candle I made. Not bad for someone barely staying awake after a long day. We were so exhausted. Finished the drawings half asleep, laughed a bit more, and call it a night. The next morning greeted us with the warm sunlight, and it was clear right away that Sunday was going to be a good one. We finished whatever was left from the last night feast, true clean out the fridge style, and also we had an unexpected guest. Even a local cutie cat showed up for breakfast. He clearly lived nearby and was very determined to join us. Sadly and unfortunately, we couldn't let him in because the house wasn't ours and he looked way too comfortable about moving in. After breakfast, we packed up and checked out, and that usual thing with local inside country trips, you have to leave the place by noon but still have a whole day ahead of you, so we took a taxi and dropped our bags in the self-service lockers at the train station. And then we took, you guessed it, another taxi across the river to Ipatiev Monastery. Despite it being a weekend, there weren't many people around, just a few quiet visitors. If you didn't know, in Orthodox churches, it's customary for women to cover their hair and wear a skirt. Also, usually at the entrance to church, there are baskets with pieces of fabric, the kind you wrap around your head or tie as a skirt. If you ever plan to visit one, it's a good idea to keep it in mind, a simple gesture of respect even if you're not religious yourself. FYI, in colder seasons though, it's fine if you're already wearing a long coat and a hat. Ipatiev Monastery was founded back in 14th century by Tatar prince who converted to Christianity, and it sits right where the Kostroma River meets the famous Volga River. In 1613, this is where Mikhail Romanov was invited to take the throne, marking the start of the Romanov dynasty. Today it's all white stone walls and golden domes and quiet country yards, one of those places that look straight out of the history book, yet somehow still feel calm and real. Around the main complex there is the bell tower and small gardens and the old Tsar's chambers, where the Romanovs once stayed. The whole place had this riverside stillness that makes you slow down even if you're not particularly into monasteries.
I'm not very religious, but visiting these places is not for that kind of spiritual part, but as a part of the history and legacy.
After that, we stopped by the little history museum next to the monastery. Mostly icons, bits of decor pieces. Not exactly a thrill ride, but still cool to see up close. We also went up to the bell tower. It was included in our ticket, and the view from the top, it was fine. By then we were hungry, so we grabbed lunch at the local canteen. This place had prices that honestly felt like they were from 10 years ago. I don't even remember the last time a pirozhok, basically a small stuffed bun, cost 35 rubles, which is about 40 cents. And everything was surprisingly good though. My favorite, pirozhok with the pickled cucumbers. Sounds odd, but tastes good, and I don't think I ever come across that anywhere else in my entire life. After lunch, we left the monastery grounds and stopped by a small market across the road. There were mostly souvenirs, so it felt much more touristy than the nostalgic one that we visited the day before. Kostroma is also well known for its natural linen. There are quite a few specialized stores around the region. Not really my kind of fabric, too wrinkly prone for my taste, but for those who like it, the selection is pretty solid. About 15 minutes later, we reached the Kostroma Sloboda, an open-air museum of wooden architecture. It was created to preserve old wooden houses and churches from nearby villages, many of which were moved here piece by piece. Walking in feels a bit more like stepping into a quiet time capsule. Everything smells of wood and grass and history with a faint scent of a childhood.
Here I feel a very unique vibe. It feels like I'm in a Russian old school fairy tales, and I don't know how to describe it, but it feels very Russian and very old school. But I think it's the best thing I've seen here so far because it's very unique. Maybe also because of the autumn, it looks even more magical.
On our way out, we picked a few more souvenirs and took a taxi to the other side of the river to make it on time for our book tour at the Cheese Museum. The museum itself is small and honestly not that impressive in terms of exhibits, but the tour was surprisingly fun. For native Russian speakers, it's actually quite charming. The guide explains all the little details of local cheese making, and you can tell that everyone working there really cares. They genuinely want you to have the best experience possible. From the guide's head-to-toe cheese costume to the bathroom decorated with cheese references, they have clearly put a lot of heart into it. After a tour, of course, we stock up on more cheese, because Kostroma is basically a Swiss Alps of Russian cheese. And then we headed for our fancy dinner in a restaurant called Groza, which means thunderstorm. It's located inside the Ostrovsky Hotel. A nice little nod to the classic play Groza by the renowned Russian playwright Alexander Ostrovsky. It's from the same company group as Syrvarnya. They even exist right the next door, but the vibe here is completely different, more refined and more on the fancy side. As we like to joke, you can always tell it's a high-end place when there's nothing for me to eat. It's all signature dishes: fish, seafood, meat, mushrooms, well, all the things I don't eat mixed together in one way or another. Creative cuisine and stuff. But the guys were really into it, and I was pretty happy with amazingly grilled vegetables and dessert. I think it was my first time in a place like that. The prices were about twice as high as in Syrvarnya or any other place I usually go to in Moscow, and you can definitely feel that. But I guess it was worth it for the experience and the celebration of our small getaway. So we raised our last toast to the trip, took another taxi to the station, rescued our bags from lockers to catch the evening train back to Moscow, just in time for Monday morning reality. Thank you for watching, and if you like this type of videos, please let me know so I can do more of those. And until next time, stay cozy and chusiki. Bye!